Hello and welcome to a playthrough of Crisis. This is a worker placement game that, I don't know, thematically is just some futuristic city that's in crisis. And so the object of the game, in a nutshell, is you can see here that the status of the economy is sitting here on this number 31. And this little, I don't know, what would you call it? Almost like a temperature chart, right? The green means that the economy is good. And of course, red means the economy is bad. And it's crashing. So we are players that are trying to prevent this economy from crashing. This is a semi-cooperative game, meaning that all the players have to cooperate to keep the city afloat. You have to keep the economy going. The rest of it, though, is there's only one winner. And even though, so if it drops off the bottom here, the game immediately ends. But what's interesting is there can still be a winner, even if the economy crashes. So that's a strategy that's worth remembering. I can remember distinctly my son playing this game with us, and he beat us all because he intentionally tanked the economy because he was the only one meeting his objectives for that round, and the rest of us weren't. And we were all busy working together trying to keep the city from crashing, and he saw an opportunity and he just let it crash. I highly recommend that if you play this game, that you play it multiplayer. I think it's fantastic multiplayer. But I wanted to show this to you because I think it is also really good as a single player game. And so there's a lot to show you here. But the first thing is you have these little cards that look like this. And every round, there's 7 rounds in every game. And that's what's on the left side here. And every round, you can see here that you have a goal. And that goal is your financial prosperity or your victory points, if you will. And the victory points are tracked here on this big grid over on the right. So, for example, we're player red, and you start the game at 15, always. And so, if you were playing this, and this tells you the number of players, and then this little abacus is easy, the calculator is normal, and then of course the supercomputer looking thing is difficult. And so if you're playing the abacus level, you need to, by the end of round 1, you need to have 22 points. So let's say I don't have 22 points. Let's say I only have 20. Then what happens is the prosperity of this will crash by 2 points. So you can see, you can actually fall short for quite a while. So, I mean, it goes from 31 all the way down to 0. So if I make it to 20, this 31 would drop down to 29. And it would just gradually keep going down and down. And you don't have to hit 22. That's not what causes the end game. This number is what causes the economy to either move up or down for your city. So, and then of course there's special things you get if you hit your goal on this round, round 2, 4, and 6. Those are important rounds where you do want to hit your goal if you can. But that's the idea. And so what I did was I selected 1 player normal. I've played this game a year ago. A friend of mine owned it. I can tell you that this is beatable. 1 player normal. The 1 player hard, we tried, even at working as a team, figuring it out. It's extremely difficult to beat it. It was 1 player hard. Now we've played 5 player hard, and actually that's just right for our group. 5 player hard it's really challenging, but at the same time it's perfectly right for our group. 5 player normal is too easy for our group. Now, granted, our group's played this game a lot. Maybe not me personally, but the group has. And so, once you get the hang of it, then you get better at the game, of course. So anyways, what I love about the game is there's tons of these cards, And, you know, this is double-sided, so you can see here's a 2-player normal. There's a lot of different variety here, so you have some potential for replay. And like I said, this mode here is going to be a nice challenge. Now, the one thing about the challenging mode is that there's this new expansion now that I have. I've never played this before. It's called the New Economy. And with it comes a whole bunch of new businesses. And these new businesses might be the difference maker in helping make me have some more options for that hard difficulty. Who knows? I'm not going to use it this mode. I want to just show you the game without worrying about all the expansions. And I also want to show you some really nice stuff that comes with it. It gives you a nice player aid card, shows you the round structure, and even the operations, and it gives you what all the import markets look like. And I'm knocking over my camera, and then it's even giving you your export options. So the primary rules that people get confused about are right here, and one for each player. It's really awesome that they did this, and they have a lot of nice little touches like that in this game. Okay, so if you're setting up your game, this is what you need to do. First thing you need to do is you're going to have a bunch of tiles that look like this. And so just throw them in this bag. And they're going to be a draw bag, and we'll get to those in a second. Every player is going to pick a color. I picked red, and it doesn't matter, but they actually do put like a red at the top of this, so every player gets one of these. You don't have to match the color, but if you're anal or OCD, you can. It's there for you. Okay, and then as I said, you start at 15 points. This starts at 31. And then we have to look at this here. So we're on round 1. So there's a couple of these. And so we put one here to show that we need to get to 22 points. And I know there's one more that goes somewhere. Oh, that's what it is. You can put it here to show that that's where you need to get your score. So it's a neat little thing to help you to know where you need to be next. And also, actually, you don't even put this on the 22. This one is for the round number. So that's what you're supposed to do. This tells you what round you're on, and that's your goal. And see, this color matches too much, so I'm going to flip them. That stands out a little bit more, easier to see. Okay. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to have these company tiles, and you sort them. On the bottom right, they're going to have a 3, a 2, and of course a 1. And there's 3 phases to this game. We're starting in phase 1. So, sorry, I have to sneeze here. Sorry about that. Okay, so you're going to grab, well, first of all, you shuffle them, and then you're going to grab 6 of the level 1 companies. And then you're going to see they're going to go here. There's a spot in the middle of the board for them. And so you flip them over and you place them like so. And the order doesn't necessarily matter. I'm trying to remember if order matters or not. I don't think it does. It's they just need to all be there. And so you can see we got them all in place. And so these companies are the neatest part about this game. You're gonna have a worker placement round where you place your workers. Then you're going to have a phase where you resolve them. So this is one of those games where you place your workers and then you don't actually resolve the worker placement until later. So sometimes when you place your worker, you get the benefit right away. Not this game. This game makes you wait. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that after you resolve your worker placement, then you do what's called a production phase. And so this industry here, Heavy Industry 01, here's the primary things. This little spot here is for your worker. That's your worker placement spot, if you will. It's going to cost you 15 bucks to buy this. And when you buy it, you immediately score 4 points just for buying it. So that by itself is already netting you a benefit. Sometimes you have these little manager tokens here, and that's sort of like a, so here, let me show you. The number of workers you start off with is 4. And you can see there's a 5th one here. And that 5th one doesn't get unlocked until you've purchased enough buildings to total 3 of these. So you'll notice some buildings have none on them. This building has 1. So one of the incentives of getting this building is it's 1/3 of the way towards unlocking your extra worker. And of course, extra worker in a worker placement game is usually awesome sauce. Okay, so how does this building work? How does this game work? So there's, before I show you this, let me just introduce you to the resources. So you have energy, just raw energy. And then you have food, which looks like bread. And then you have chemicals, which looks like a beaker. And then this is, your iron. This is your machinery. And over here is your raw ore. Okay, so you probably guessed it. You're going to need energy to power most of your buildings. Food tends to be its own little thing. Same with the chemicals, they tend to be their own special thing. But you can see you need ore to get iron, and then you need iron to get machines. So there's a cycle here of dependency. And of course, you can see them all here on the board like this. And this is the marketplace where you can sell those various resources. Well, these buildings here, what this is saying is you need a worker that has a wrench. So there's 4 types of workers in this game. You have a farmer with a shovel. Then you have, I think it's called an engineer with a wrench. And then you have, I don't remember what he's called. Maybe just call him a worker, handyman. He's got the hammer, carpenter. And then you have bankers with the money. Okay, those are the 4 types you can have. So to do production with this building, you need to have an engineer worker. And these workers, when you hire them, they're just a part of your team. And every round you can mix and match them any way you want. And you put them to work in whatever factories you'd like. So you could actually own some factories and not even produce with them on your turn, because maybe you have something else that's even better. But anyways, if you put a worker here, has to be a wrench. You also must spend 1 energy and 1 ore. So those are all the inputs. So just think of this as just a giant function box. So you gotta have all the inputs, and then this is the output. You're gonna get 2 beakers of chemicals. So this heavy industry is a chemical plant, basically. Now, you also notice that there's a handyman and a wrench down here, hammer and wrench. You don't need them. The only thing you need to run this is this, and you'll get 2. But the cool thing about this game is you'll notice that, here, let me grab a handyman here. This handyman has a little white bar going through his head there with a 1+ written on him. So if you had this guy also, so let's say I had him working here, and I also had this guy in my employment, I can put him here and see how that little white bar goes through his head, and it fits perfectly with this white bar. What it's trying to say is I'm adding a 1+ multiplier to the game. Now, there is no actual multiplier here. This would just mean I'm going to get 3 instead of 2. And if I had another wrench worker, I can't use this one, but if I had another one, then I would be adding 2 of them, and then this would be 4. Now I'm making 4 beakers instead of 2. Does that make sense? So as you may have guessed, there's going to be workers that have more than just a +1 written on them. And that's where the coolness of this game comes in. And most of the level 1 buildings you can see are pretty straightforward. And let me just grab some level 3 buildings and we can peek at them. And then I'll shuffle them again. So you got like this one here is a level 3 building. You can see it gets a little more complicated. You need 2 types of workers just to fuel it. And then here you actually produce 2 different goods. And so you're going to score victory points and money with this particular one. And then here you can see that it's a 6 times 5. So when you put your workers here, remember these workers I had a 1 on them? So this would be 6. Let's say I had 2 of these workers. I'd have 6, 7, 8. Now it's 8 times 5. So they're multipliers instead of just additions. And so, but the multiplier only applies to this. They would just be an addition for that. So this would be 3 plus 2, and this would be, 8 times 5. So that's a perfect example, the spaceport, of how the industries evolve by the time you get to level 3. So if you can understand that, you understand 90% of this. The rest of this is really straightforward symbology, because that's how worker placement games tend to be. The final 10% is understanding the market. And the market is generally straightforward. It's more important to know what the market does in a multiplayer game, in my opinion. In a single player game, you're going to have the luxury of no one's really dicking you over. This game can be pretty cutthroat if you're playing a multiplayer. And that goes away with the solo play. And I think they try to make up for it by making the victory conditions a little tougher on you when you're by yourself. Because that's the other thing. With multiplayer, even if you're having a bad game, somebody else can carry you and the game still will last 7 rounds. And sometimes your bad game can turn around quickly because this game, if you fall behind, you can catch up sometimes. Sometimes some players, if you let them have all the right stuff, you got to pay attention to what everybody else is trying to do. In a solo play, you can just worry about what you're trying to do, which I think is an excellent introduction to this game. So I'll explain the rest of the rules as we play. Let's just get through setup and then go from there. These are event cards. Just shuffle those, set them aside. These are special. I don't remember what they're called cards, but they're important. And shuffle those and set them aside. This is for the money board. So your money is tracked on this little marker here, but no respectable 18xx player does that. So I have poker chips that we're going to use instead because they're 100 times more effective. And so in my case, I will not be needing these. Now these are for negative victory points, which are things that we hope we never see in the game, but they do happen, and so we got to keep those aside. Beyond that, it's pretty straightforward. We have this, which represents your turn order. Now the turn order is here, and you can see we're going to always go first because we're the only player in the game. But if there were other players, you would be jostling for turn order all the time, and that would be represented with your briefcase there. And of course, there's worker placement actions that can manipulate turn order. Like I said, you start with 4 of your workers. The 5th one is out for now. And then these 2 represent loans. And we tend to like to put them right here. And then when you use a loan, they go onto these boxes. So this would be, my first loan and my second loan, or my second loan, etc. You can have 4 loans in the game. And of course, you have to pay interest. You lose victory points when you take a loan. And then you lose victory points at the end of the turn if you can't pay them back, in addition to the one you lost when you took the loan. So loans are pretty necessary in this game. And that's also a cutthroat action for this game. That when you're playing multiplayer, you're going to experience it a lot harder than single player. So let me. I'm just reading real quick. These are called influence cards. Those are influence cards. They can be really swingy. Like some of them are exactly what you needed and they're going to save your game. And some of them are going to be completely worthless. So those, if I've ever experienced anybody who does not like this game, it's the influence cards that they don't like, because they just feel like they're too hit and miss. Okay, so you got to make sure there's this little robot. He's called a temp employee. You can hire him for 1 turn, and then he comes back here. These ones are available. This is like your labor market, and the cost for them, you can see here, is based on the status of the economy. So we're in green right now. And then as the economy starts crashing, they get cheaper and cheaper because they're willing to work for less. So you set those up like that, and then you go into your grab bag here, and we're going to grab 5, and they go here. So these are random workers that show up just from the grab bag. So what you get is what you get. And this is what makes the game have a lot of variety to it. And this is a spy that's not useful in a single player game. The spy lets you collect resources from somebody else's factory. So I'm just going to set this out of the game, and then we'll just grab one more. Oh, look, there's another spy. There's only 2 spies in the game, and we drew 2 of them in the start. All right, well, that's fine. I'm just going to set them out of the game. We won't use them in a solo play, but in multiplayer, they're pretty cool. Okay, so just real quick, you can see here that this one has a 2 on it. So this is the kind of guy you want to put at the bottom of a factory, right? He's the kind of guy you want to have down here because he gets a 2 bonus instead of a 1. The guy with the 1 bonus, you want him to be the one that's here. You know, it's that kind of thing. Okay, so then I need to figure out what money we start with. That's the one thing I'm trying to remember. Oh, that's right. Starting player gets 22 credits, and then it goes up by 2 credits from there on out. And so we're just going to get 22 credits. And I'm going to put them right here so you can see our money in the middle of the board. Hopefully that won't block too much of your view. We'll go from there. Okay, and then these. This is like the export tiles for our market. And so basically it's saying, I always have to look this up. We have to remove 8 level 1 and 8 level 2. And I'll show you how this works. So they're just, they're shuffle. So I'm going to grab 8 randomly. So there's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these 8 are out. And then we're going to do the same for level 2. So 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And yes, in case you're wondering, that is enemy action Ardennes underneath this game. I have the 2-player map over there. This is the German solo map right here. And then to my left is the Allied solo map. And it all fits on my table. It's pretty awesome. Anyways, they're all set up. I would love to show you that game, but I'm still learning it myself. And it's not the kind of game I think I can just learn as we go. So I want to give it a little bit more time. Okay, so we have our 8 and 8 out. Just set them off to the side. You're technically not supposed to look at them like I just accidentally did. Okay, so then you're going to grab 12 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. 12. All right, so here's the general idea. If you look at that card there, you can see that there's 3 level 1s, 2 level 2s, and 2 level 3s. So what we're going to experience in this is we're setting these up. So this is all level 1. So this will be the market for this turn. and then this is the market for 3 turns from now. So let me put it this way. So we're going to flip all of these ones. Well, we actually flip them all over. There was no need for me to put them the way I did. I guess for suspense purposes. And okay. And for the OCD of you, I will fix it. I promise. You can now focus on the program. All right. So at the end of round 1, these are going to go away, and then these will shift over. But during round 1, only these 2 that I covered my hand over, so basically let's look at it this way, those are the only ones that are available. These are like contracts, if you will. So there's somebody in the market that wants to buy 6 food. There's somebody in the market that wants to buy 2 iron. Okay? So if you look at it this way, this is somebody in the market in the future is going to want to buy these things. And so at the end of the round 1, whether we use these or not, these are all going away, and then these will slide over, and so will these, and then what we'll do is we'll fill those in. I hope that makes sense. And so if I wanted to maximize this, I know that in round 1, these are the 4 I should focus on, because I should take this food, like let's say I have a food empire, right? I want to make the most money off of food. Well, I'm going to take this one in round 1 because I know these 2 will wait for me in round 2. And then I'll spend these in round 2, and then I know those ones are going to be waiting for me in round 3. So there's no need to grab this one when this one is going to be going off the board. So I probably spent way too much time on that. So now you're going to see that we have 4 more level 1s left. So so now with those 4 more level 1s, so let me think about this. So we have level 1 for the first 3 rounds, and then level 2 for 2 rounds. And so yeah, so this will be the first round. That's right. So these guys will go on at the end of the first round, and so they'll fill in here. And then by the time the 3rd round comes, these here will be on the left side, and these 4 you can't see will be there. So 3rd round will have all level 1s. Then when we start the 4th round, you're going to see 4 level 1s here, but there'll be 4 level 2s that moved over, and then you'll have 8 level 2s here. And then eventually the level 3s will kick in. I'm pretty sure that's how that works. I always get confused with this, but I'm pretty sure. Let me count here. 1, 2, 3. Here's 4 level 2s. So if I do them by 4 at a time, yeah, this is going to work out exactly like I said. So then we have 8 level 2s basically that are coming out, and then after that, level 3s come. And I know I'm grabbing them 4 at a time, but the game doesn't care. So technically speaking, you can have your whole draw pile from the start of the game, that this is how the game will draw them. And in fact, I'll just set them off to the side exactly like that. So we will draw them every round. Okay, so from a setup perspective, we're good to go. So first thing you do in a round, I have this little round structure here, is we have to draw an event card. And the event card is going to be the color of the economy. So we're green right now, so we have to draw a green event card. In a nutshell, the best I can tell you is that the red cards are usually not as bad as you think. They're actually helping you in a way. The green cards tend to hurt you because the economy is good, so people are whinier. I mean, just look at the American politics system right now. And so when things are bad, people are whining less. So the events tend to be a little more conducive to helping your business get going. It's a general rule of thumb, though, so don't hold me to it. So you could play this game where you're hovering in the red zone and then you take off. It really that's a beautiful part about this game is you can do all kinds of strategies. This is not a one solution puzzle by any stretch. Now the difficult solo mode might be, because that one, if we ever have time to play another playthrough, I'll show you the difficult mode. I haven't played this game in over a year, so I did not want to try difficult solo mode from the start. So I want to show you how a normal game is played. The difficult one is really difficult, and that's all I know I've said it before, but anyways, let's get going. So we grab an event and just do what it says. So it says brain drain, decrease the Axia financial status by 2. And so the Axia is the name of our city, and the financial status is this little temperature probe here, so it drops by 2. So we've already got a 2-point drop without us even doing anything. And then it says the temp employee location may not be used this round. Okay, so I'm going to set that off to a discard pile, and they give you these things to help cover up. So what it's saying is I can't do this action. So you just put it over the action to remind yourself that that action is not available. And so let's talk about the board. Well, what's next? Loan interest. We don't have any loans, so we don't have to pay any interest. And then planning. You would take turns in turn order, placing your managers. And most of these locations are first come, first served. So let's go through. Everything on this board is numbered. So you can see there's a purple number 1, there's a 2, then a 3, and then a 4, and it keeps going down. Every purple number you see is an action space, and then you can see that there's like a little silhouette of a square that represents where you would put your worker, right? So that would be the location, and then the symbology above it is telling you what you get when you do those actions. And as you can see, the 5 is all the way down here. And then the 6 is here, and then there's 7, which is blocked per the event. And then you have 8, and then 9, and then where's 10? Oh, 10 is this hiring buying these buildings is 10. So all of these are step 10. And then 11, 12, 13, 14 is this little market over here. It's an exchange market. You know, you go into the port or whatever and exchanging for goods. And then it goes, how high does it go? It goes to 12. Nope, it keeps going. And there's 13. 13 is, what is that? I may have to look that one up. What is that symbol? I forget. I will look that up real quick. But I think 13 is just handing in cards to get resources. And that might be the influence cards, but I'll check that. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This isn't a worker placement. This is the production phase. That's what that is. And then 14 is another worker placement spot. So 13 is not a worker placement spot. Because remember, you place your workers, and then later on, you do things in a sequence. So when you place your workers here in the market, they don't activate until after you've done the production round. Whereas all these other spots, the 12 spots before the production round, those activate before the production round. So I hope that makes sense. One other thing that's important to understand is that these buildings, the input resource. So let's say this one needs ore, and you can see this one produces ore. Let's say I own both of these buildings, and let's say that this one produces 1 ore, and this one needs 1 ore. Well, you might think, okay, well, I'm going to run this building first, and then I'll use the ore I make from this to... Nope, that's not allowed. You can use the ore you make from... The resources available from operating these companies is not available to you until after the production round's over. So you can't use the output of one as the input of another. So if you were to buy this the first turn of the game, you need to find a way to get an energy and an ore to fuel your building if you want to run it on turn 1. So there's many ways in this game to get it. One of them is this convoluted stuff up here. So here you can see I can spend a bread to get 2 energy. Well, I don't start the game with any bread. Here I can spend 2, is that victory points? No, that's money. 2 money to get energy. So I do start the game with money. 3 money to get energy here. And then here, this is where it gets really crazy. You can spend a victory point and a money to get an energy. So if you're willing to, if you want to spend less money, then you have to pay victory points instead. So there's a lot of options up there. You can study it for a long time, but just understand that almost anything you want in the game is available up there for a price. And some of the advanced skills you're going to get is that you're going to learn there's some synergies. Like, for example, the food gets you energy, as you can see there. So if you have a food production plant, you may not need an energy production plant. Like, it might be redundant for you. Whereas if you have a, like if you're heavy on the ore or the machinery and they use a lot of energy, you may want to have your own personal energy plant. So that way you're not constantly spending resources to get energy, because you may have huge energy requirements. I can tell you as a rule of thumb, you can play this entire game without owning an energy plant. And you can use this board to produce energy for you. When you're playing solo, you can exploit this until the cows come home. If you're playing multiplayer and other players have the same idea as you, these spaces can be highly contested and you can find yourself getting screwed. So when you're playing multiplayer, if you can secure yourself your own energy plant, I think you'll find that you'll have a more satisfying and less competitive game. I'm not saying that it's going to get you a win. I'm just saying that it's going to get you less, you won't be fighting so hard over certain spaces. Now, you may have noticed it. So like that space there says a times 1 to 2. That means you can put 2 workers there. Or, I'm sorry, let me back up. You can it's a 1 worker space. Only 1 worker can take that action, but you can do that action twice with that worker if you would like. So you can exchange 1 ore for 2 energy 2 times. So you can spend 2 ore for 4 energy. And then you can see there, it's only going to let you do it once. So you spend a chemical to get 3 energy, etc. Here, you can spend 9 money to get 3 energy, which, by the way, is less efficient than this one. So why is there 2 of them? Got to keep in mind, this is a 5-player game. So people, very common, they will spend money to buy energy. So you can see that this one's the more efficient one, 2 money for 1 energy, or 3 money for 1 energy. But if you're desperate for energy and somebody already took that spot, you got to take the next one. So see, in a solo player game, we're not going to have to worry about that. This space here, that's 3 energy or $3 for 1 energy, we're never going to use it. Now, I do take that back. You can see here, you can use it 3 times, whereas this one you can only use 2 times. So if we desperately needed 3 energy and you had the $9, you would go there instead. But anyways, I hope this is starting to make some sense. And then if you're using the harbor up there, the harbor, as you can see, they're taking victory points and blood from you to get items. And there's an interesting correlation. So for example, look at the iron there. It's going to cost you 4 victory points and 8 money to get 1 iron. Well, when you sell at the market, you can see here that right here, it costs 4 victory points and 8 money to get an iron. So this, sorry, I didn't mean to bounce. This chart here summarizes all that gobbledygook you see up above at the harbor. So you might be thinking, boy, that's just a lot of eyesore. I have to like follow my eyes around all that stuff. You don't have to. You can just come down here to this chart, and almost everything that's up there is also down here. So you can see that this is 4 victory points and 8 to get an ore. But if you sell an ore at the market, you're going to get 2 victory points and 4 money for each ore you sell. So obviously selling them is not quite as lucrative as they're getting for buying them, but that's what you're doing, is you're paying market prices. So you can see there that the machinery is the most lucrative for you to sell, but it's also the most difficult for you to set up. And then you can see that the bread and the ore are the basic commodities in this game, and then energy has no sell price. It's just used as an input for all the other industries. So now you're going to see there that there's a slash. So you can get 2 victory points and 4 gold, or just straight up get 8 gold or 8 money. That is possible, and so that's what this final action here, number 14, is. This is a critical part of the game, step 14. When there's multiple players, this can be really competitive. But obviously, let's say that there was 3 players here, and you're the first one. When you go, you pick one of these contracts, and then you sell them. So let's say I do the food. I can do 4 food. I don't have to do 4, but that's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to sell some food. Well, whatever food I sell, for every one I sell, I get 1 point and 2 money. Now, the other option I have is, instead of taking a contract, I can do this little sunglasses thing, which is the black market. So what it's telling you is you can only sell a maximum of 4 of any resource per turn. So instead of taking, let's say somebody else took this, and I had 4 food I wanted to sell. Obviously, I can take one of these 2. So it's a good time to be a food salesman when you got all this food available here. But let's say somebody took this one, and I had chemicals I wanted to sell. I could go to the black market and sell 4 chemicals here. The problem is I'm not getting victory points for it, but I can at least get some good money. The knowledge of when to use the black market versus this is not strictly limited to, oh, somebody took this, so therefore I'm going to settle for the black market. Sometimes the black market is exactly what you want to do. You just got to understand you're not scoring victory points. And victory points is how you keep the economy from collapsing. This is actually what my son did to make the economy collapse, because he refused to sell here. He took the raw money, which converted to victory points for him, and then he made this thing collapse because he refused to score victory points from selling over here on the contracts. And since he failed to score victory points, this thing just collapsed down, and then everybody lost the game except for him. So it was very well done. It was brilliant. Okay, so I probably belabored this a lot, but this is a critical part of the whole mechanic of the game, is understanding this. Now, another important thing is, remember I said there was 3 of us? I go, he goes, and then it goes back to me. And this is infinite until everybody's done with the market. So you only need to have 1 worker here, and you get to do an infinite number of things. So it's just done in the order of the players. The black market, just one final thing, it says 4. It's a max of 4 per resource. So let's say I go to the black market in my first turn and I sell bread. Then I get to my second turn. I can go to the black market again and sell any of the other ones, but not bread. So you only get to sell each of these resources 1 time at the black market, and when you do, it's a maximum of 4. So you can't go hog wild and just sell 16 things at the black market unless those 16 things are 4 different resources. And also note, there's no energy here, so energy can't be sold like that. So I think we have enough to get started. What do you think? Oh, let's talk about other actions, right? We talked about the right half of the board quite extensively. This is where you exchange. And then remember, the production phase happens here. This action here is a first come, first serve. And whoever goes there gets these workers, and you don't pay anything. It's free. It's just absolutely free. It's a first come, first serve. That worker joins you. Here, it's one and only one person can take this action, and then they can hire one of these guys. So usually what you'll see play out in a 5-player game is 3 players will take the hottest items, right? And then these 2 are just mediocre. And you may see the 4th player snatch up a building because one of these is really hot. And then the 5th player is stuck. Well, you know, he'll take the better energy exchange, right? He'll do the one energy exchange that's cheaper. And so then the player who went first and got the really hot, you know, worker, he's now stuck doing the more expensive energy exchange, but he's okay with it because he got the better worker. You see, that's how it plays out. Somewhere along the way, one of these guys who got screwed at the end and didn't really get the worker that they wanted, they'll end up going here and just paying whatever price they need to pay. The temporary worker obviously is helpful because if you can, you know, maybe you can't, the temporary worker is free is what I'm trying to get at. You don't even have to pay money, and he's just as good as any of these guys, except the temporary worker is just for that round. Whereas if you do pay money for, sorry, I keep knocking things over. If you pay money for these guys, they are yours forever. And that's why you're noticing that these have the little hashes through them. It's just for setup purposes. When you're done with the game, these go in a different bag than those. I mean, you can see these go into the draw bag. These never do. So make sure you keep them separate. Action 6 here, you can see it's going to let you use the market here, right? The same market price to buy any good that you like. And so what it's saying is you don't have to spend the points. So you just have to spend the money. So remember, it was 4 points and 8 money to buy an iron. Well, now it's just 8 money to buy an iron, but you're buying one and only one resource. But it's a really nice way to buy a resource without having to spend any victory points. So it's a first come, first serve. One single player gets to do it. And a little spot for your workers here. And then this one is take a loan, and you get $10. You immediately draw a -1 victory point. You don't lose a victory point. You draw a -1 victory point token. And that's critically important because losing a victory point here will cause you to fail to hit the end turn objective, right? So a loan does not hurt your end turn objective. It gives you $10 right away in immediate money, and you just take one of these negative victory point things, and at the end of the game, you just got to reconcile your score. All right, so now we're moving up. That's just a player order, like I said. You don't actually have actions there, but up above you do. And so you can see at number 4 there, what that is you're going to go second in player order. That's what that 2 with the red means. And so you're going to go second in player order, and you get to draw one of these influence cards. And these are always beneficial to you. It's just sometimes they're not exactly what you needed. The number 3 action spot is you will go first next round. So as you can see, if you're playing a 5-player game, somebody can claim second and somebody can claim first. And that's all that you can claim. Everybody else is just going to stay in the same turn order. But somebody can claim first, and then they actually just score 1 victory point straight up. They just get a victory point. And that can be pretty neat. I mean, obviously, it's the bigger value there is going first next round. And then up on the number 2 spot, that's straight up get $4. So every worker you put there gets $4, and you can see it's a really big silhouette of a square. That's because infinite workers can go there. Just think Stone Age or any of those games where you have that action where all your workers can go to if you have nowhere else to put them. This is one of those. And you get $4 for every worker you put there. And then way up in the number 1 spot, that's grabbing an influence card. And so that's also an infinite action. Now, remember, these things are in number order. So if I put a worker here, I need $10 to buy this. So then what I can do is I can claim this first, right? Because we take turns placing our workers. I claim this first because this is the hotness, right? I don't want to let anybody else get it because everything here is first come, first serve. Well, then I'm planning on taking a loan to buy this mine because I have $0 to my name, right? So you can go to the loans box, but let's say another player took it. Well, it is possible I can get to my turn and not have the 10 bucks. So then what do? You actually lose victory points. And that's what those negative victory points things are. So if you are ever caught with your hand in a cookie jar and you're not able to buy something that you claimed that you wanted to buy, you lose victory points for that. So taking things just to deny other players from getting it doesn't always benefit you. Now, the other thing is, that's where the order of these sequence actions matter, because you can see right there, you get 4 bucks for every worker. So I could brute force my way and put 1 worker here on the mines and 3 workers on the +4 and make 12 bucks from those 3 workers. And then my 4th worker can finally afford the mines. I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat in this game. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so good. Okay, so I'll go over these buildings in the next video. I think I'm going to stick to my format where the gameplay will be on video too. And I think we're ready to get started. So thanks for watching. Stay awesome. And here we go with Crisis.